morning to the honorable ministers of the council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martinga Radio, 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV Plus, respective radio stations island-wide, online and TV 15 viewers. I'm Rolika Roach and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Egbert Duran, to address you. Minister Duran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good morning, Prime Minister, Minister Richardson, members of the media, support staff of CoM, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today, I have a few brief updates. I'll start by the building code. On May 15th, 2023, the Ministry will be holding an information session on the new building code, the National Building Decree of St. Martin. This session is intended for architects, engineers, contractors, and other professionals in the construction industry who would like to be informed on the latest building regulations and standards. The new building code has recently undergone an enormous revision. Persons in the industry and by extension the public need to be aware of these changes in order to ensure that they are designing and constructing buildings that are safe, durable, and in compliance with our local regulations. During this information session, attendees will be provided with an overview of the new building code, including changes to the building materials, construction methods, and safety requirements. We will also be discussing the best practices for complying with the new regulations, as well as any potential challenges that one may face when implementing them. I am particularly pleased with the work carried out by the ministry for us to get to this point. I've said it once and I'll say it again. There is so much to be done to correct the wrongs of the past. It is with work such as this that finally brings proper structure to our building codes and ensures that we are not only safe and resilient with structures we put up, but also take into consideration our environment as well. I would like to invite everyone to get ready for this updated rollout as it pertains to the building codes. We will be releasing some more details in the coming days. In the meantime, should anyone have any questions pertaining to attending the event or attaining any information on this topic, feel free to contact minvromi@stmartingov.org. So minvromi@stmartingov.org. I would also like to take this time to thank the policy department for all the work and also the other department for their input in this great achievement. Really, without them, it could not have been done. I would like to make it known for the record. Next, with regards to Dutch Quarter, this coming Thursday, tomorrow, I will be in Dutch Quarter for a community update. This will take place at the Dutch Quarter Community Center at 6 p.m. sharp. I, along with persons from the ministry, will be on hand to provide updates on things happening in the area that have an effect on the residents. I look forward to not only being able to say what we have planned, but also hear from the residents themselves on what some of their concerns are. Once again, that is tomorrow, Thursday, April 20th, at the Dutch Quarter Community Center, 6 p.m. sharp. Today, as I was getting ready for work, I was reminded by Facebook that 2 years ago, today is when we won the first court case against Alegria, a case where we fought to protect the interests of the country. It is not easy. There was plenty of resistance and those who felt it should have gone differently, but we overcame the odds. This serves as a reminder that no matter the struggle or what they might say, once you have faith, we will become triumphant and victorious, which was the case. It was not my win alone, but it was a win for the people of St. Martin, and I will continue to fight to protect the best interests of St. Martin. In regards to the road updates, this week there are no major roadworks announcement as the contractor will not be working during the carnival period. There are some corrections and fixes that will take place on the Bush Road after carnival before we move on to the next area. Updates will be provided soon within the coming days as well. While on the topic of carnival, I would like to take this opportunity to wish everyone an enjoyable and safe Carnival 2023. I would like to encourage the public to look out for each other during this time and be your brother's keeper. While having a good time, drink responsibly, eat responsibly, and remember that as adults, we behave responsibly as well to set a proper example, especially for the younger ones. On that note, I want to congratulate the 2023 Junior Carnival Calypso Monarch, Ismaya Lady E. Hodge, with her song Tribute to Educators. And also Junior Road March Monarch, Makali, Mighty Kali Richardson, who sang Represent. The Junior Road Mart King parents hail from the Ministry of Rummy, so I'd like to congratulate them as well. Tonight there's a groovy soca competition and our local band clash. I want to wish all the participants the best of luck, and I want to encourage the public to come out in numbers to support them as we support all those international shows that we have as well. In closing, I would like to share the following with everyone. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11, it reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." We have a paradise called St. Martin, and today I want to encourage you to do your part and protect her. I believe that God wants the best for this nation, but it comes with putting in the work. Don't worry with those out there just blowing steam. If we all do our part, we will be okay. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Sylvia Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Relika. Good morning to my colleague ministers. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members of the media present and all those following this broadcast via whichever media. I want to extend my warmest wishes to all of you. On April 22nd, the world will be celebrating Earth Day. This is a reminder of the importance of preserving our planet and working together to protect our environment. We must remember that we have only one Earth, and it is our responsibility to take care of it for ourselves and for the future generations. This is our time to reflect on our impact on the environment, and to take action to reduce our carbon footprint and promote sustainable living. As your Prime Minister, I am committed to making our country compliant in environmental protection and sustainability. We will continue to work towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and promoting renewable energy sources. We will also focus on preserving our natural habitats and protecting our oceans and waterways. I urge all of you to join me in this effort and to take steps toward a greener future, whether it's by reducing your energy consumption, planting trees, keeping our island clean, reducing our use of single-use plastics and styrofoam, an effort that we're making a great move on as Government of St. Martin, and supporting, or whether you're supporting environmentally responsible businesses. Every action we take individually or collectively can make a difference. Let us celebrate this Earth Day 2023 by renewing our individual and collective commitment to our planet, to St. Martin, and take action to protect it. Together, we can make a positive impact and create a better world for ourselves and future generations. This, I would like to remind you, is in line with Sustainable Development Goals that we hold dear. Climate Action, number 13, Life Below Water, 14, Life on Land, 15, Clean Water and Sanitation, 6, Affordable and Clean Energy, 7, 12, Responsible Production and Consumption. Consumption, we are the consumers. We are the one depleting the earth. So I want you to take time to think about this. Our National Development Vision under Theme 1 also talks about a compassionate and united society. Under Goal 8, we say our environment is safe. So it's protected and it's well-governed. So we have to deal with the well-governed part. We have to deal with the protected part, but together we can all keep our environment safe. And I think Minister just mentioned it just now. We are celebrating Carnival, and it hurts my heart to see at the end of certain things, all of the plastic littered all over the island. First of all, there'll be nothing to clean if we don't dump it on the ground. So the first responsibility lies with the individual. There are bins all over the place, and while it may not be a recycle bin yet, please dump all waste into a bin. We don't have to rely on someone to come behind us to pick it up. It's mainly adults. And so, also leading by example and keeping our island clean and showing our youth also with our behavior that we can act responsibly even in the fetting season, I think is a great initiative for all of us to uphold. To all of the booth holders and all of the vendors on the streets, please ensure that you are doing your best to also use sustainable products. It may not be the law yet, but it goes a long way in the impact you are making on our community. Let's join together to achieve a St. Martin that is clean, healthy, focused on protecting our environment, and thereby contributing to not just a clean St. Martin, but a resilient and healthy Earth. Happy Earth Day when it comes. As part of the Fostering Resilient Crisis Management Project, which is being implemented in collaboration with VNGI and financed through the RESEMBID program, again, RESEMBID is the Resilient, Sustainable Energy and Marine Biodiversity group, so they help us with any projects in that vein. This training took place this week. It was on crisis information management, and it consists of, among other aspects, an introduction to crisis information management, the work processes in information management, and how information is shared. The training courses were attended by the emergency support functions of the EOC and their teams, and it was deemed a success and enjoyed by all participants. I would like to thank all those who facilitated and attended the courses and continue to prepare to ensure that we are doing all we can for risk management. I'd also like to add my congratulations once more to not only the winners, the youth winners of our recently held competitions for Road March and Calypso, but we have also on Monday past a wonderful display of culture on St. Martin. Not just St. Martin culture, but culture across the board, the way we do things, honoring all of the people that live and contribute to St. Martin. I must congratulate the culture department on a job well done in the promotion of culture. It was fully funded by government and enjoyed by all. I wish to encourage all of our artists to continue to promote themselves all through the year, and hopefully we will be able to sustain them in that as well, and look forward to this evening's program with the Groovy and Band Clash, as Minister just mentioned. Band Clash is tomorrow? Oh, there I go. So with the upcoming other local events, which I hope will get the support of the St. Martin population. Continue to support our vendors out there as we celebrate what we eat, what we drink, but do so responsibly. And I did put it in my carnival statements at the beginning of carnival. But again, we do have laws in St. Martin. And what I saw for the opening jump up was a lot of youngsters. Parents, take your responsibility seriously. Children under 15 do not belong in a jump up. Children under 15, by law, do not belong in a public dance party. That's what a jump up is. It is for 15 and up. So if you bring your child to that, then you should be there. Your children should not be in that melee by themselves. It was not good to see. And I overheard several young people saying, I was drunk. That's not a good look for St. Martin. That's not a good look for your child whose brains are still developing. So take your responsibilities seriously. It should not be left to law enforcement to be pulling children out of a jump up. So we have other events coming up that are adult geared. Let that be for the adults, and the things that are geared for children. There was a wonderful family day on Sunday. Let those be geared for children. So I look forward to us keeping our youth safe. And I ask all those road users, we're seeing a lot of deaths as a result of scooter accidents, and I'm seeing a lot of crazy behavior on the street between cars. You're not only endangering your life, which is precious, but those of other road users. Please be careful, be safe, and have a happy and safe carnival.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. However, before we begin, I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, is present. However, will not be making any opening statements, but available for any questions the media may have. The floor is open, and I would like to invite Bibi Hart Shah of Estimate News. You have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, ministers. Good morning. My first question, Minister of Justice. Minister Richardson, over the past weeks, we have seen go slow. We have seen all kinds of statements, read all kinds of statements made by the police because they're basically fed up and waiting for their payment. Now that the Council of Ministers have taken an emergency decision and decided to pay these workers, can you tell me exactly when they will get their first payment? Do you believe that the ministry will meet the deadline given by the justice workers just until Monday or Friday this week? Will they be able to get paid by then?
Thank you very much. Good morning to my colleagues and to the press and to everyone who's tuned in. Definitely, the staff has adjusted themselves to be able to process this decision from the Council of Ministers. We have to still remain realistic because we know within our government structure everything has a process. However, we are doing everything that we can to be able to see to it that the agreements that have been made will be met in a timely manner. So that's the most that I can give at this time. Everybody's doing their utmost best to be able to get it processed.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Bibi. Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Rolika. Very good morning to the ministers present and my colleagues and everyone else. Prime Minister, I would like to start based on a comment you just mentioned regarding Earth Day and the importance of keeping our environment clean and so forth. One step in this direction, I believe, is reducing our use of single-use plastics. Can you therefore update us on the law passed to this effect? When can we expect it to be implemented? And I would also like to ask you regarding the whole issue of debt cancellation. It's been made pretty clear, I think, by yourself as well as some of the other islands that the Dutch government is totally against debt cancellation at the moment. So my question is, what is St. Martin's plan to repay its debt? I see that one of the islands is seeking to refinance its COVID loans on the international capital market. Is this an avenue that we are also pursuing? And generally, how are we working on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for those two questions. Rolika? So indeed, the first question related to what I'd mentioned on the Earth Day and the steps that we're taking as government. The law is in place, but their enforcement of the law lies with the Ministry of TEAT. So there has to be a training that is done and information sessions to all stakeholders before it can be deemed implementable in terms of to execute and fine. So it requires work to be done via the Ministry of TEAT. When that is so far, we will inform. But what we are doing as General Affairs in the launch of the Plastic Free St. Martin project is through the St. Martin Development Fund as the executioners of this project, bring awareness. So in starting to bring the awareness, already I've seen that certain bigger supermarkets already remove plastic bags. It is now for it to trickle down to the others, use what you have, and then move towards more sustainable bags, or they have paper bags or something else. But I encourage the population of St. Martin to already invest in reusable bags for themselves and refuse bags, as a matter of fact. That's one of the things that individually we can do. And I will check with my colleague minister in terms of where we are in planning and preparing for the implementation of the law. As it relates to debt cancellation and our trajectory for the discussion on refinancing with the Dutch government, all three countries are in separate discussions based on their situation. As you know, Aruba, based on how their situation was set up, have loans on the open market already. And so if they can afford to do that, then they can continue to do that based on their legislation. We cannot just go to the open market at this time as St. Martin. We're having discussions. We have a work group that are looking at all of the options. And I have a follow-up meeting this Friday, the 21st of April, with the State Secretary who will be in St. Martin, which this will form one of the topics. But we're hoping to be able to have something concrete in terms of where we are going by June of this year. So we won't be, discussing exactly what is happening. We're having discussions still. Our work group is busy preparing the options in terms of what we can do. We as a country have to ensure we have a plan, a sustainable multi-annual plan. And I think for the most part, having that in the details before June is not likely, but at least we should be able to present some options as to where we want to go. You're welcome.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Judy. I would now like to invite Stephen Cerulean of PJ82 Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Good morning to you, Prime Minister, ministers. Good morning to you as well. My question is for the Minister of Rami. I'm not going to ask you about the former government building, but however, I'm going to ask you to detail your plans for us in connection with the development at the Prince Bernard Bridge. Precisely what plans do you have for this area, Minister?
Thank you for the question. Although you mentioned that you're not going to ask, you did mention it, so I'm going to touch on it as well. It left the Ministry of Rumi 2 weeks ago. It's now, again, like I mentioned, in the process of being approved by the Council of Ministers to then sign the contract and start the works. So I can expect that to be done within the 2 weeks, not putting any pressure on my colleagues. No, I'm talking about the demolition of the former government building. With respect to the bridge, we had several bids over the last, I would say, 8 to 9 months. The first first time no one showed up to the bid. The second time we did receive several bids, but they were out of scope with respect to the funds that we had available to execute. So back to the drawing board, we decided to handle, I would say, majority of the repair work internally. So 80 to 90%, which we can handle internally as a ministry in efforts to cut costs. And the second option, we're busy in discussion now with the Nature Foundation to collaborate and have the bird towers done. So I don't hope that is clear. So we're going to start with the works because the price was too high based on the quotes that came in. We're going to do that internally. And based on the additional extra that I mentioned with respect to the bird tower, we're going to collaborate with the Nature Foundation, which we had a meeting on Monday about.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. My question is for the Minister of Rumi. Minister Doran, I want to touch a little bit on affordable housing. I know this is something that you've been promoting. Can you tell us if any research was done to determine exactly how much or a price range that an average St. Martiner can afford to purchase a home? The last time affordable homes were built by APS, it was tagged at $365K, and I think you know exactly where we stand with those homes. So has there been any research? If it was done, by whom?
Thank you, Bibi, for the question. I'm very passionate when it comes to home ownership because I know how hard it is to secure a loan and different things, and I know how hard it is and will become more difficult in the future as our population increase. In my opinion, I've said it publicly, not to knock anybody, but the facts are just the facts. The project that you mentioned with APS and the Orex Hills, in my opinion, that was not affordable homes because people couldn't afford it. Hence the reason they had to go back to the drawing board, how they went about it with the lease to own. I hope, and I didn't hear anything negative about that, but that was my proposal back then, saying that they just couldn't get the project going. The research that we conducted internally as a ministry between the permits department, new works, and also policy and domain affairs, actually. So it was a interdepartmental study, so to speak, if you want to call it that. We went to the bank. We used average salaries, and all of that work went into the planning for the Vineyard Heights project that is currently on hold. We went in, we determined how much the average person, we gave salaries and examples, and based on that is what we used to put together the price range. and how that would have worked and will work. I would say not would have, but will work, because I'm optimistic that it will come to fruition, is that we as government would lease the land to persons, 25 persons. Subsequent to that, we will build 16 or 18 townhouses, which will then have double duplex homes, and then towers as well. So a plan for the infrastructure, and based on that, we could then control the price based on giving the land for free, or not for free, but almost for free, in order to decrease the cost on the land. And then the developer would then build the land and sell it for a rate that we agree upon. And all of this would be incorporated in the deed as well, which I believe was the premise behind Orex Sales and KL. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think it was $495 government paid per square meter back then, with that whole scandal that took place. And it was sold for a guilder to APS, but still the price was so high. I'm not sure where the calculations went wrong, but we, again, as I mentioned earlier, correcting the mistakes of the past and moving forward and making things affordable.
And what the figure you came up with the interdepartmental research?
Okay,
what
I would like to give you exact figures, but I believe the cheapest one, I think with 2 bedrooms, about 185 or something like that. But I'll just have to double check to verify that, because it's been out my mind for about almost 2 years, the exact figures. It's been on my mind, but out my mind in the terms of moving on with different projects.
Thank you, Minister Don. Thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Since Minister Durand is asked, I would like to direct my next question to you, Minister. There was a situation with a huge fire in KB the other day at the garbage disposal location in that area. And then we see the immediate following day, the garbage had again accumulated in excessive quantities. My question is, have you addressed, the issue with the garbage collector for that particular location? And why is it accumulating so much to risk another fire? And I just have a clarification on the question that my colleague asked regarding the, well, he didn't ask the question, but you answered, on the government building. You mentioned that you expect something to be done within the next 2 weeks. Can you clarify what exactly you expect to be completed in the next 2 weeks? Is it for the demolition to start? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Fitzpatrick. With respect to the clarification, what I expect in the next 2 weeks is that it left the Ministry of Romy and is now in the final stages of being approved, by the Council of Ministers. And I say I hope 2 weeks, and I mentioned also not to put any pressure on my colleagues, but we can't force a decision, but I would like for it to be done in that time, so that right after the carnival we could just continue and move forward. So I could put some smiles on a lot of faces, especially Mr. Steven Cyrillian, who has been very committed to that cause. And with respect to the KB garbage situation, I would have to follow up with the contract management department as to what steps or concerns was brought forward to the hall. I haven't gotten any update from them with respect to that point.
So can I expect that information from you here today?
Sure, I can send it, no problem.
Thank you, Minister Don. Thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. My question is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, the State Secretary is supposed to be visiting St. Martin this week. I'm sure, well, discussions are planned to have with your person. My colleague mentioned the possibility of requesting debt cancellation. I also asked about that last week as well. During your meeting with the State Secretary, is it something that you're willing to bring up? And what are the areas of discussion that you're looking forward to have it with her?
I think I responded to that question previously in saying it always comes up. That remains a stance of St. Martin, that it is not solely to refinance the loans. When we were granted these loans initially with the former State Secretary, the discussion was, and it can go back in the record and see, and in fact, I believe on the floor of the second chamber just recently, someone from that same party, the CDA, mentioned that they would have no issue with St. Martin or the countries as long as we executed our reforms, getting debt cancellation, getting some level of debt cancellation, not just canceling debt just like that. And this was actually one of the negotiating points. I can say this now that the underlying regeling is signed, that we had put forward back then. And it was not deemed a quid pro quo, like how would you do that? How many reforms for how much cancel, of debt? So that was not decided then. We now know that the underlying arrangement has nothing to do with the finances that we accrued or the debt we accrued as a result of COVID. It is solely for the execution of the reforms. So now the discussion, as I mentioned before, with the working group, they have the mandate of the government to seek as much as possible debt cancellation, debt swap, and other initiatives that would reduce it so that we're able to utilize funds that would go towards repaying this debt for our own development. So we are still having that discussion, and we have to provide a good and sound plan to substantiate our stance. So that still remains St. Martin's stance. And it will be brought up again and again. Excuse me? You mean in terms of the other topics? So the refinancing was the main discussion, as that's the most pertinent. We have ongoing deliberations with our Kingdom partners that will form part of those discussions, including the whole where we are with our AXAR committee, what they're doing. And there was a discussion with the State Secretary about us collaborating more to be able to, with our French counterparts, to be able to access EU funds, which we already do. And I'll be hearing more from her what her take is on that. So those are the main topics we'll be discussing coming up.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, and thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Minister of Justice, based on your answer that you gave me earlier, I'd like to know exactly, do you believe that there will be some kind of decision on regarding the payment, how will it be paid by Friday? And also, can you give me an update on the opportunity you gave employers to regulate their employees' permit? I know you recently issued a call to employers to make sure this is done because controls will begin shortly. Can you tell us how that is progressing, but also make sure you give me some information as to what will happen on Monday? Will we see the justice workers going back and go slow?
Okay, so I know we have a meeting that we're supposed to confirm the time with the unions to meet back with them on Friday. I don't believe the time has been confirmed yet, but those discussions are still to be held. With regards to the payment, as I mentioned before, all persons, all hands are on deck to process same. Can I tell you that it's going to happen on Friday? It takes the cooperation between the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finance, signing, and so forth. And everyone is aware of that. Sorry? I know it needs more than that, but I'm just saying that it requires the collaboration. And as I indicated, I recognize and we recognize where these demands are coming from. Persons who do not operate within the apparatus of government is requesting that things be done within their realm of time. Nevertheless, I think the Council of Ministers have shown that we really want this situation to be resolved. We understand the frustration of the staff. It's not that persons are not willing or don't want to, but it is a case that proper channels have to be followed. Nevertheless, we are doing our utmost best where that is concerned. With regards to your question in terms of the pilot project, as Minister of Justice, I have definitely signed quite a number of, or honored, I should say, quite a number of requests of employers and employees to give them the grace period to be on the island while their documents are being submitted. What I do not have for you presently is the numbers in terms of how many actual applications have been presented to the Labor Department. That is something I'd have to get and provide that at a later time. But I'm hoping that indeed employers has taken use of regulating this in a proper way for their staff, especially having staff that have dedicated themselves, their lives, their abilities to their companies over the years. It is only but right that you do right by them, and that is the whole objective of the pilot project. Minister of Labor would have to be the one to advise the status of that. But yes, indeed, once this pilot project is over with, the controls will resume. The collaborative approach and efforts of the ministries together and the various departments, controllers, immigration, customs, police, would have to come together again and begin the controls as we did before, because I don't think anyone can say we have not been cooperative and we have not been considerate. It's unfortunate that some persons will receive the negative end, but I believe that some companies as well will have to experience true governance of enforcing the laws as they are. But I leave that to Min Vesa, or Minister of Labor, to execute that aspect of it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Minister Richardson. The police recently raised, I believe it was yesterday, raised the alarm about the whole issue of falsified insurance documents. My question is, can you give us an indication as to how widespread this is? It's something that I've been hearing for a while. And has anyone actually faced, the brunt of the law for that? I mean, what happens to someone if they are found with a falsified document? Is it just taken away from them and then they go make another one? What exactly happens? Can you give us an idea how widespread it is and how many persons, if you have that information, were actually punished for that? Thank you so much.
So I thank you very much for bringing that to my attention, Judy. I guess I'm too caught up in the whole personnel matters that I'm fully not aware of what it is you are indicating. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. If you would allow me, I'd like to delve into it a little bit more and then revert back to you.
Okay, can I therefore ask another question?
Go ahead, Judy. It's fine.
Thank you. Prime Minister, can you give us an update as to when the cleanup of the census office is expected to be completed so that we can have some sort of indication on where we're headed in terms of expanding the number of seats for elections?
Yes, indeed. I don't have an answer to that either, unfortunately, off the top of my head, but I will definitely seek to have that sent to you before end of day today.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Stephen?
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Prime Minister, my question is for you again. The search for the deputy governor for St. Martin is still ongoing, I take it. Can you give us an idea as to how this process is progressing?
Besides what I have already updated in terms of what the process entails, I have no new updates today on that, unfortunately.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the third round. However, I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Egbert Duran, had to depart the meeting in order to attend the meeting in the House of Parliament. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Prime Minister, can you give us some details on the agreement signed between the French and Dutch regarding the borders, specifically Oyster Point area?
There has been no agreement signed between the French and the Dutch as yet. There is a proposal on the table that is approved to be signed at some point in the future. We would like, as I mentioned before, the opportunity to have the discussion with the necessary stakeholders that will be affected before having any further statements on this. I do have a follow-up meeting with my French counterparts. Is that today? Later today. That is with the Prefet as well as President Mussington. We have regular meetings. We have ensured to include that the local representation is also in these meetings. And so we'll be discussing all of the cooperations that are pending signature, which include security, cooperation on security, cooperation on education. There's an MOU pending, as well as on the border and some others. So as soon as I'm asking for a bit of patience, that we have had the necessary consultation with all who are impacted by the proposed agreed upon borderline, then we will be able to share more information with the general public and via you as the media as well. Yeah. But I want to reiterate that the fact that we were able to move forward with that discussion is what laid the groundwork for us to now be able to collaborate on all of the other areas. So that makes it, for us, a win, because each collaborative effort, whether it's in justice, police, immigration, whether it's in economics, whether it's in finance, health, youth, culture, is not just then a discussion held on March 23rd on Treaty of Concordia Day or on St. Martin Day, but it's something that's tangible, that's living, that happens on 365 days of the year. And we're moving towards improved collaborations between North and South. And so for that, I am grateful that we have that collaborative relationship going on. And I will update you, and we will send out some press statements after our meeting later today. So hopefully by tomorrow.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, I just have a clarification I'd like to ask you, and then I'll go into my question. My colleague Stephen asked regarding the agenda for the meeting with the State Secretary. I know that the State Secretary is scheduled to have a sit down with the Chief Prosecutor while he's in St. Martin. She's in St. Martin on Friday. Now, justice is a domestic affair that falls under the government of St. Martin. It's not a kingdom affair like defense or foreign affairs. So can you give us an indication as to what those discussions will be about? And my question, Prime Minister, I'd like to know if you can shed some light on whether a suspended member of parliament can appear on an election candidates list. Thank you so much.
As it relates to the State Secretary's agenda, unfortunately, I'm not privy to that. So this is the first I'm hearing that. I didn't go looking to see what else she was doing while she's here. So I can look into that, but I don't have that information related to any meeting with the OM. And I just asked my colleague who was also unaware. So we will be looking into that. At the end of the day, the responsibilities, what the OM we contribute, is that what it is? So there's a collaboration between, maybe the minister can further explain that part. And besides that, your other question, part of the question was?
Whether a suspended member of parliament can appear on an election candidates list.
So the requirements to there, unless the person is convicted unequivocally, so irrevocably, that can take place, yes.
Minister Richardson?
Yes. So the State Secretary is scheduled to have a sit down with the prosecutor's office on Friday, and I was saying that this is a domestic affair, and I was wondering what is on the agenda for that meeting, if you have some insight into that.
Oh, no, I don't have any insight, but then the Prime Minister was asking about our contribution that we make. We do make a budget contribution to the OM's office on an annual basis, but I don't know if it has anything to do with that. I don't have much specifics. So as the Prime Minister indicated, we would have to do some inquiries to find out what exactly is going to be transpiring here. Thank you, too.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Prime Minister. And thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the final question.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. My question is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, the minimum wage earners recently got an increase in their salaries. What we've heard or read about was the fact that bus drivers or bus fare will be increased by 50 cents. The date for that is still pending. Wouldn't you agree that you raise the salaries or the minimum wage for minimum wage earners on one hand and then taking it away from them to give it to somebody else?
Thank you for that question, Stephen. Seeing that that advice has not been finalized via government, I find it uncanny that the information has already hit the presses, so to speak. We had a very in-depth discussion on this topic in the Council of Ministers. The advice has gone to the Council of Advice. However, we noted that it did not get the advice of the Social Economic Council as yet. This is required for this type of change, as it was required for the increase in minimum wage. Now, we all know cost of living has gone up, and as far as I'm understanding, it's also gone up for the bus drivers. So, in that sense, we are to not only look at it from their perspective, but also from the consumer's perspective, as you clearly mentioned. And we know that the minimum wage hike was not so great that, but it will have an impact on everything, because there's always the risk, and that's where we have to get serious enforcement, that because so many businesses rely on minimum wage workers, that this will then impact cost of living again. You understand? So it's a cycle, and it has to be managed very carefully to not cause constant increases. So we're still awaiting several studies, but this one will have to, before it can be finalized, go to the Social Economic Council. I can tell you that before it goes on and upwards for signature. So that's where we are at this point with it.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune in to St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.